Welcome to Live at the Blue Box. My name is Chris Mott, one of the co-hosts. Unfortunately, Rob is not feeling well tonight, so he's under the weather, so he won't be here. But I've got two more Southgates, so I don't know if that's a good trade or not, but we're doing pretty good. Tonight we are discussing LARPing, but more specifically, we're going to discuss a game called Chronicles of the Realm, which is, I want to say, more than just a game. It's a world that these fine folks sitting right here have created and are playing and are doing. So let's have everyone introduce themselves and we'll get going in there. We'll start. Go ahead, Molly.
My name is Molly Southgate. Should you say like her character?
Yeah, sure.
I play Princess Raven Miriam.
Yes. My name is Tiffany Keane Schaefer. I am the game master, lady listener, and founder of Chronicles of the Realm.
Woo! Woo!
My name is Play.
She said game master. She did.
Lady listener, I heard it. 5 minutes later.
Are you sure we can't get Rob here?
I know.
Oh, it's worse. Trust me. Trust me. Don't even admit it. He's
It'll
worse.
be good. Okay, so excellent. This is not going well. My name is Elizabeth MacDougalnd. I play Lady Illyria Corson, one of the two heads of the Corson household.
And my name is Dylan Schaefer, and I play Lord Burncroft Belzen, a royal lord.
Yes.
My name is 30-second delay, Martha Southgate, and I play occasional mute Lady Clark.
And trust me, that is the best thing for you.
Oh,
Just
I
don't
bet you will all
So-
wish I was mute very soon. Yes, if not already.
So great, and like I said, my name is Chris Mao. And one of the other reasons I kind of was involved with this because they kind of did like a test run a couple of days before they opened. So I got to see a lot of the material that these guys were going to be forming and kind of give some critiques on what was happening. And I'll tell you what, this thing was unbelievably awesome. From us just sitting in Tiffany and Dylan's living room and having people act it out to see what's going on, I can only imagine how cool it was on site. So I'm gonna ask Tiffany and these guys a few questions. We'll get going, and then if you guys have any questions, just raise your hand and what's happening. So Tiffany, you had mentioned that you are the co-founder and creator. Are you the only person that did that, or is there somebody else or other people involved?
You know, it was a very organic process, I have to say. Like, I was probably like the initial person, the idea person
Yes.
behind the whole thing. My background is in theater, mainly science fiction and fantasy theater. I founded a little theater company that does science fiction and fantasy.
Never heard of that.
Narratives on stage in Chicago. We were playing a little bit with immersive theater in the work that we were doing, and I was like, oh my god, wouldn't this be so great, but also having people react and be able to participate as players and be a part of the experience and have their own characters. And then someone was like, well, that's the LARP is. And I'm like, oh, there's a thing that already exists that's kind of like this. I should probably look into it a little bit. And I, did a YouTube search and started seeing all these great LARPs, especially overseas, especially immersive blockbuster LARPs, and being like, that's what I want to try. That's what I want to do. So I went over to my friend Mary Kate's house, and I was like, I want to do a LARP, and she goes, great, when are we going to do it? Because everyone needs that person in their life that just is like, yeah, we're going to do that thing. When? And a little bit, maybe like a month or so after that, we had our first brainstorming session at Liz's house. We played this game called Microscope, which is a world-building game. Do you remember the name of the person who made the game?
Oh, I can't. And my husband is going to hate me for not remembering. But the whole point of Microscope is you build the world. The game Microscope. The game.
Hey, do your job. Do your job.
Looking at who's died, whether someone's still alive.
So Rob's mother is our official
That's all we
Googler.
do.
Let's go. Google.
And then I almost missed it. I have no idea.
Google. But how Microscope works is you build the world almost based on the eras of the world. You start with the creation of the world, and then maybe you'll jump ahead. Oh, thank you. Ben Robin. Ben Robin.
Very little.
Is retired as the creator. She needs things. And so you look at the epochs and the eras of this world, and that is how you build the world. And it was, oh geez, we were there for what, 5 hours?
5 hours.
It was intense.
Well, the great thing about the game that I really like, it has like, it is a little structured, so everyone has index cards, and you like put one, you're like, I'm making an era. And you put down the card, and you like name the era, and then the person next to you puts down their card, and they go, this is a main character in the era. And so like, everyone is participating in the world, so that's why it's a little fishy to say who created it, who founded it. It was so many brilliant minds on it.
You can take the credit, it's okay. You're the mastermind. Please.
Well, I didn't have all the contracts.
Yes.
I'm the one who's like, yeah.
I'm going to officially say Dylan is your guy. He's the guy who, yes.
He is the
I'm going to say he's the guy.
He's your guy?
One thing, I understand here, but he's your guy that does that stuff,
Yeah.
which is good.
I have a question.
We all need guys.
So you had never LARPed?
I still have never.
Except you.
Except for Chronicles.
Except you did.
I still have never.
Because I can't say that anymore either, because I did it.
No, don't do
Not
it.
as well, but I did it, yeah.
Yes.
But, okay, so you had never LARPed, and when you're talking about the overseas, the immersive things that are you like the Harry Potter one in Croatia?
Well, yes,
Things
it's
like
not
that.
Harry Potter. You have to be really careful. It's the Wizarding World.
It's not
Yes.
Harry Potter, and you are not going to Hogwarts.
Trademark. Trademark.
Yeah.
You're going to Hogwarts. Yeah.
Yes, that's the one that's in Poland. That's a
Harry Potter.
That's the big. I mean, so LARPs in general culture, what people think of when you first say a LARP is usually they think of a bunch of nerds in glasses hitting each other with foam swords. And you know,
I just have to cut it here because that's what I always say when someone says, what do you think about LARPing? And Tiffany always whacks me and says, that's not what people think about. So obviously I was right.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
people think that, but that's not what necessarily it is.
And you're supposed to be an edgy theater. That's kind of what we do.
But that's great. I mean, there is a need for that, and it is very fun. But that is only a limited scope to what a LARP can be. Actually, even in Europe, the LARPs are so big there that they are nationally funded. They are funded by governments. Yes, because
Can I go there?
I wish.
More plays, Molly. I have to say more plays.
So the difference is in Europe and why they take it very seriously. It's all immersive, so they take over either castles or they take over national landmarks, and they it's almost reenactment, but also there's different types. Obviously, there's reenactment where they're reenacting major battles, but there's also LARPs that are like high fantasy world. What is also starting to come forward is the Nordic LARP, which is where you get into the LARP being more about the story and the players and the characters than it is necessarily about the battle mechanics. I like to say, generally when they're like, well, can you give me an example of the differences between your LARP? I say mine is more like a BioWare game. If you play BioWare, it's about characters and it's about really interesting NPCs that you interact with, and then you have a storyline that your character is like, and you have your own personal quest, and it's more about your character navigating the world than it is about hitting people with swords. It's just different, and that is something that we're kind of bringing a little bit more into the genre, making it more narrative-based.
Because I remember when I was in college, people said, "Oh, LARPing," and I knew that as an excuse to wail on people with swords and hammers.
In the woods, you go to the woods and
we
fight.
did it in the center of our common grounds at Drake University. They had a full combat thing. We put on armor and literally just wailed on each other for. You can only do it for 10 minutes, and then it's really tiring. But that's what it was. And there's a bunch of them around here. They have one that they do here in Elgin. Is it called Fairy Fair or something? But it's a live action role play that they do down here now. And there's one here. There's a big one in the state's pensive, right? Would that be considered a LARP, or is that not a LARP?
The major ones that I know is Alliance and Nero.
Okay.
And like they do have narratives, but like it's really battle focused.
Right.
So like for instance, we are going to have fights in our next game, but it's a page long of mechanics. Like it's just one single page. You can get through it.
Right.
The other rule books are like 90 pages.
Right.
Where there's like there's spells and different things, and you need to know when some person yells something at you. You need to know exactly what that does to you and how much damage you take. And we try to keep it really simple because again, we're focusing on why you're fighting and not how you're fighting.
Yeah, it was about the story. I mean, it was amazing to listen to these guys come in, and I'll say, Elizabeth, you were amazing, and Dylan, and you know what? I'll be honest with you. I didn't like both of you guys as characters, not personally.
You're not supposed to.
Your characters were well, but I mean, no, but I will say that I loved what you did, and after understanding it all, and I hate to say, looking back at it from the end, it was totally justified, and you guys were awesome. But you did a great job. But it's like you guys are kind of jerky and kind of whatever, and that's your role.
That was Ferncroft, yes. Not so much Lady Illyria.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Majesty, for putting. No, but I mean, I thought it was great.
I feel like Princess Raven is sucking up a little bit, and her mother would not be that happy.
That's okay. That's what Princess do. But I mean, you guys were awesome. I mean, and just from that little bit that was in there was great. Now, you guys have already had one session. Where did that go, and how did that go, and where was it?
Oh yes, my
Because
dear.
I heard there were some very interesting turns in the game.
Some wedding. So we have some wedding news. We have some joyful news.
It's okay if you think she's better, because now she's my better half.
So what's really interesting about Chronicles is that so our last game and first game, we took over Stronghold Castle, which is in Oregon, Illinois. And that's another way that our LARP is a little more different, is that you stay the night in a castle. You are a part of the experience, and it is an overnight experience. But you're not just camping, you're also like in a castle, or you're at an estate. So you are immersed, and the food is all included as well. So all of the meals are medieval fare. So
You get to use silverware or not? Sorry.
you didn't. Silverware was used in the Middle Ages. So that's one of the things that makes it different, and also that players and the choices that they make in our game can change the course of what happens in the game, which is kind of what happened with these two.
Did somebody throw a bunch of coins at them and say, "You guys have to get married"? But how about that?
Actually, so there was some. The basic plot of Chapter 1 was the capital city of Amalur, the island where the world takes place, was invaded and overrun by a strange force, and the survivors from the capital city fled to Stronghold, which was this castle in the middle of nowhere. And secrets were revealed, and plots were laid, and schemes were navigated. And one thing that ended up happening at the lovely dance that happened on Saturday night, through a series of choices that had been made. Thank you, Charlie. Lord Burncroft Elgin, in an effort to secure his position, proposed proposed marriage to the Lady Illyria Corson, and acknowledging that such a political match was a wise thing, Lady Illyria agreed.
Yes.
I was
following your heart.
Screaming. I bet it was like,
Well, I think what really made it special was that they were from rival houses. So when you're playing Chronicles of the Realm, there are 5 houses that you can choose from, depending on what you want your character to be. Belzen, Burncroft Belzen, he is part of the Silver Blood house. He is the royal house. And Lady Illyria Corson is in charge of the Rogue Assassin House.
Which I do wish to point out, I share house leadership duties with my brother Anders. Want to speak about your relationship with Anders, my Lord Brincroft?
He's obsessed with me, but that's
He just loves you so much.
well. I think the most interesting part of this whole thing is that the relationship between us and this marriage was not something that was written or supposed to happen. It was a player who came to play the game, who role played so intensely, he forced us to, to go in this direction. So, which is a cool thing. And I don't see his devious face anywhere in the crowd.
Your devious brother.
Well, he was playing my character's brother, yeah. But because of the political intrigue he was trying to pull off, he ended up creating an entire part of the story that we had not considered, which is the fun thing about this game is that it's very narrative based and we've created all of these stories and characters and arcs, but it can still be, and still is, ideally, influenced completely by the players.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, when I heard, because what I saw, there were some things that were leading up to a possible marriage going on, which was not, I won't say not obvious, but was building towards it. That was kind of the plot of the first one. And then Rob goes, oh, there was another marriage. I'm like, what the blank happened? So, and then he told me, I go, that's awesome. So, that's cool. So, tell me how, kind of like to get an overview, how many cast members did you guys have for the first show?
The first show.
How you say game? First chapter. First chapter.
It's first chapter. The first chapter had 15 NPCs.
Wow. Okay.
There's that many?
Yes.
Right. And then how many players did you have?
We had 25 players.
Nice. And that was a sellout, correct? Or close to it? Or
no, it wasn't a sellout. It was a perfect amount. I honestly, for our first game.
Right. That's how you get the feel of it. But
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
awesome.
the cast was huge, so we could have fit more players, but it was a good number of us figuring out also the mechanics of the game and how they were playing out in real time.
Cool. And I know you guys spent a ton of time on, obviously dealing with Molly and following all you guys on Facebook, seeing like all the pictures and all of the stuff. It's like you guys put a ton of work in. I mean, look at the artwork that they have. If you can follow that on Facebook, is it the Chronicles of the Realm or Chronicles of the Realm?
Chronicles of the Realm, LARP.
LARP, okay. And on Facebook, the pictures are unbelievable. These guys are very talented artists, and they do these unbelievable plays, and their skills that lend very well to this game or this world creation, and this stuff is just amazing. So, people, if me and my friends put together something like this, it would be like, something written on a piece of paper like this and a picture on Facebook saying, hey, let's play. I mean, this is professional stuff, and it's fantastic. So, it's really cool that you guys did all that. So, how does this, as a creator and a game master, how does this wedding throw the wrench into the next chapter for you? Because as Dylan said, you probably never thought that someone would do that, or maybe you had the idea, but first game, we're going to mess up the whole thing by
well, but that's the joy of it too. Like, our players are so amazing that they took everything that we gave them in terms of narrative and ran with it and owned it. And that's what you always hope will happen.
Right.
That they make the story their own, and they aren't voyeurs, but they're participants.
Sure.
So for our agenda to get totally messed up is amazing.
Was that hard for you? Because I know you got to have it's obviously you're outnumbered, so there's 15 of you against 25 people. Did you ever find yourself going, whoa, there's all this crazy stuff going on, and how do we do that?
So I can actually speak to this a little bit because I found it in my household. As the head of the Corson household, one of the two heads of the Corson household, it was a big house. We had seven.
Wow.
In the Corson household, and I was terrified because I had no idea. Okay, I'm the NPC. I'm the extension of the idea. There's no way. They're going to take this and they're going to run with it. And every single player in the Corson household looked at us and kind of, I saw it on their faces. I saw, okay, these guys have a story that they want to tell. And we are going to be participants in the story. But we are going to trust them. We are going to trust the NPCs. So, and I found that pretty much across the board with everybody who came to this LARP. They trusted that we knew what we were doing and that we had the story, and that even if they threw us a curveball,
Which they
like,
did.
with the political
Yeah.
plotting, we were going to be able to go with it. So I think I have to give such a shout out to our players for trusting the NPCs.
One of the cool things too, the players and the NPCs the NPCs also have characters that we've created, and that we have wants and desires and things that we're playing as actors. We're trying to go for what our goals are, our objectives. My character, I had already decided, was hopelessly in love with Liz's character. So that was something we went into the game with, and the players caught on to that pretty quickly because I would stare longingly at her across the room, and
More than stare.
so
You,
they
talk
they
to them,
knew.
like, I love you.
Did the game
Yeah.
master hit a special button so you pull
Well-
out a trap or anything?
Well, the other thing,
wanted to.
the other thing too, is that our characters our story was that our characters had a child together, but it was not due to a loving arrangement. It was due to a political arrangement that we were going to have a child that would be the heir to our houses. So we had this.
Your house.
Well, that he'd be able to leave both houses, though. That was the whole point. So we had this history already, so I talk about it constantly as a character, because, of course, having a child meant that we had to sleep together. And he would take every opportunity.
children in the room.
He would take
Once,
every
but-
opportunity to bring it up.
Oh yeah.
But
Every opportunity.
the characters, the players who are playing characters in the Royal House, started trying to play matchmaker a little bit, sort of out of our hands. They just decided to do it. We had no idea whether they were going to support what Burncroft wanted or not.
Right.
And there was one particular event when I was standing outside talking with everyone in my house because the guy playing my brother was trying to overthrow me. So I was making sure they were still all in my corner. And Liz came up as her character to talk to me. And the interesting thing about this is we're all actors, but I'm a pretty experienced improviser, and improvising is not really Liz's acting experience.
Nope.
So she was very nervous, and we were doing this scene that was not planned because we were having to make sure that my character, being the head of the house and the NPC, wasn't actually overthrown, and done in a way where the players didn't feel like we were, superseding what they were doing. We were trying to make it all still make sense, narrative and plot-wise, so that the choices people made still mattered within the game. So she came to do this scene where she basically was saying, she was supporting me, and with her house supporting me, I was stronger and whatever. Well, since she was so nervous, everyone in my house thought she was flirting with me, which wasn't really her intention. But I remember I turned around and faced them after Liz left, and they were all like, ooh. And it just sort of organically built to that being the result. So that night, Liz and Tiffany and I and a few other, of the NPCs and head people huddled together, and we were like, well...
In the kitchen.
In the kitchen.
Frantically planning this.
And we were like, well,
What the
Burncroft
blank
and
was
Illyria need to get married. I mean, that's what has to happen. Which is something, there were seeds for it to happen possibly later on in the
Sure.
series, but it was not at all something that we had planned to do. And there were actually a lot of other NPCs, actors, at the ball where the proposal took place we had not had a chance to tell them.
Sure.
So they were like, what is going on?
The girl who is playing my younger sister we were able to warn a small handful of the NPCs that this was happening, and one of them we were not able to warn was my sister, and so the look on her face was absolutely priceless. I will remember it forever. Were we able to warn Mary Kate? Were we able to warn the Queen?
Yeah, Mary Kate was in on the
No one
decision.
told me.
Oh,
So I was like, oh, okay. Why
Yeah.
is she, what's happening?
Well, and that's the thing too, that like, I think one of the things that we learned doing the first game is that we have to be willing to kill our babies. There's a path that we
So watch it, Molly.
Oh no, not this baby, never this baby. I am
She could be a ghost baby. It's okay. She's like,
as literally the god of this world.
Come back. I'm the spawn of the
and knowing Mary Kate, it's probably in her mind. So,
Did you hear what Molly just said?
Actually, one of the players already made me promise I would secure Molly's safety because she's supposed to be here too. I don't know where she is, but so you're safe for now.
For now.
For now.
was it that grumpy guy? Her dad? No, I'm teasing. So,
She said she'll come back as a corrupted spirit and haunt you.
yes.
Yeah.
But in all reality, like we as NPCs and game designers, we have an idea of where we want the story to go, and sometimes we get really into that idea. But if the players make choices that negate that, we have to be okay to just be like, all right, well, that's not going to happen now.
Have you ever DM'd a D&D game of really creative people and like you have this whole thing planned out, like 3 seconds in, you're like, oh my, I have nothing, I can't do it. And that happens. It's cool though, but it's good because not only are you performing, you're more part of the game by doing that. And I think that's kind of cool.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
And that's what like one of the players, like for instance, another way that our LARP is different from other Nordic LARPs is that you build your own character. We do not assign you a character. A lot of the discussions are happening early on where someone's like, I want to play this kind of character. I want to be a mage. And like, for instance, I have a character who's like, I want to be a mage. I really like the moon. This is what they gave us. I really like the moon and I want to be a mage. And what do you got for me? So I'm like, okay, well, there's this moon cult. So we would have never had a moon cult had this
There's
player
a moon
not.
cult?
Exactly.
yeah.
Chapter 2.
Princess of the Mages. What's going on? Don't you know?
She hasn't been to a rehearsal for chapter 2 yet.
Well, I think that's actually a really good segue to your character because a lot of it, like your character is almost in the dark for a lot of chapter 1 at least.
Join the moon cult.
She can join the moon cult.
Yes.
But anyway, like it's a lot of yes anding, right? So the player wants to be a part of, like, have a moon slant to their character. We say yes and now there's a moon. Now there's a moon cult and moon magic, and we as designers have to develop that for this character.
Cool.
So again though, like we didn't have a moon cult before, but now we do because of a player. So.
I sense the rule book getting thicker. No, I'm teasing. So, as more comes in, there's obviously more things to cover. So that's just part of the lore,
we do we have a lot of lore. I will say that our game is pretty lore based, not mechanics based, but lore based because again, it's all about characters. So the more that you know about the certain characters that inhabit the world, the more that you are able to navigate it because you know the lore and you know the history of Amalur.
Because I remember you talking to about it and seeing on the boards, your players were like so enthused and coming up with ideas and like we're going to do this group and we're going to meet, and obviously a lot of them knew each other, which is awesome, and so that's really cool instead of it just kind of being like, oh, just show up and hate to say do the Nirvana entertain me. They were there to be immersed in it. And I think that's awesome because that's great. It's got to be great magically. I'm so mad I didn't get to go because the night of it
When's the next one?
I'll get into it. So the night that they're gonna have this, I'm like, I'm going. No, it's the busiest day of the year here at the Blue Box Cafe. We have Nightmares Chicago Street outside. I can't take the day off. So I'm like, oh. And then they're like, oh, we're gonna do another one in March. I'm like, please not the first week. Please not the first week. I've had this trip planned for 9 months. It's the weekend I'm on vacation, which is nothing. So if I can make it, I would love to, just because I'm totally into that kind of stuff. But it's cool now. And I think that was good. Martha, you had something?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I just was curious, where do you get, like, okay, so as you're planning the story out and you're kind of working, what are your inspirations other than, like, the European ways that they're doing it? Like, but where are you getting your story elements and things like that? Because they're not coming from that, clearly. They're coming from games you play, books you've read, things like that. Like,
Yes and no. So, like, definitely BioWare games have inspired this game, but only to like what is driving the game, and it's the characters. But really, like, we really kind of did build this world from scratch.
We have players. Yay!
Yay! Players came. Yeah, so that's what was kind of really exciting about it, because it was so, like, everyone told us what they wanted. Even our NPCs, like, I want to play this type of character. When Molly came in, she was like, I want to be Mary Kate's daughter. And we were like, yes, and?
That's a shocker there. So.
And I want to be evil.
Yeah.
So,
because look at her. Typecasting.
Yeah.
So, like, we definitely have our inspirations. Like, Game of Thrones, obviously, is another inspiration. Character-driven, political drama. Lord of the Rings a little bit. But, essentially it is our own world, which that's kind of one of the things
cool.
I love about it.
One of the things that did inform a lot of what got built in the world was people coming in with these characters. We would say to them, okay, well, who do you want to be? What do you want to be? And so people would submit a character, and all of a sudden there would be this new facet of the Golden Bloods or of the Silver Bloods. There would be a union between two of those actors. There would be a different mage, an Alden who was adopted. Just, nobody is ever just adopted in a fantasy world. Nobody is ever just an orphan in a fantasy world. Right there, I will warn
They always
you.
have like magical powers.
Or some secret parentage that they don't know about.
That's right.
So yeah.
One of the things that Stephen taught me, which is Liz's husband
Yes.
in real life,
And our
Real
photographer.
Yeah.
and our photographer, and Galen the Doug, who's an NPC, portrait maker. He told me this really big nugget, and it's kind of something, my mantra as I go through the world of Amlor, and it's always be at the throne of the player's desires. So what the player desires is where you navigate your story. Always bowing to it, always being referential towards it. It's not about us even. It's not even about NPCs. It's about the players. And
It's about Molly. Don't lie. No,
It is.
the players, and then Molly.
Then Molly.
Yeah.
She is the high princess of the world.
I am.
Yes.
So
The
For
whole
now.
world.
You need to start.
Am-
Look,
Not
little
just,
secret: if you're
the whole
evil,
world.
you need to start killing people or doing something.
I'm not evil yet.
I know. Well,
She almost killed me.
did she?
Well, he is.
Also, she's not really the princess. So
Oh,
Who is my mother? The queen. I am
the queen,
princess.
the queen regent. She married. She doesn't have royal blood.
she's not. No, she's
I'm
not.
still.
Unless she takes it, which if you
This
watch
is-
Game of
this is-
Thrones, all you need to do is take the throne and it's
Semantics,
yours.
people.
Semantics.
Semantics.
This is all chapter 2.
This is chapter 2. So, you know what? We didn't get into. Tell me how the game mechanic works with the players, because I know there was a thing where you had like some tokens and they had things that they could do and earn and spend. And how did that work for your players?
Honestly, the first chapter, it didn't work as well as we had
Okay.
hoped. We kind of redid that portion of
Cool.
it and made it more narrative based, because honestly, adding that mechanic, it was like one of the mechanics that we had,
Right.
and it didn't work.
Sure.
Because we want more freedom. That like it's about character choices making
Right.
a difference, and not like the money. You
So I know you talked about earning and stuff, but they also each had like a special thing that they could do. Is that going to go forward, or is that not going to go forward?
It's not going to go forward.
Okay.
The last game we had tokens, and they were supposed to represent certain abilities that your character or house would have. But it ended up being like people were not sure about when to spend their money
Sure.
or when to spend their token. It got kind of convoluted
Sure.
because the special tokens and their money were kind of combined.
Right.
It was more like influence than
Okay.
it was actual money. This time we are having an actual currency system.
Okay.
So you actually have coins, and there will be metal coins that you can spend.
Ooh.
Unlimited amounts over there. You can go to the store and buy things for your character. It is going to be like a total economy.
Is it gonna be like Link where you just grab up? I'm sorry, that'd be awesome. Like you grab up to get it. So
Some players get more money than others. Like for instance, the
Royals
Royals,
get more. Yeah.
get the most amount of money.
Let me
yes.
guess, the Rangers get the less.
Mom, you
Servants
realize
get the
The
least.
servants get the least, but
Mute servants.
Well,
you
no, that's
realize
cool, 'cause-
I'm a royal.
Right.
You're my handmaid.
you're an arcanist. See, because
Which
I
is
would have bet money
the
that
princess.
somebody played their tokens
So
to force you
royal.
guys to do what they wanted to make you guys get married. Because that I don't want to say that's what I would have done, but I was thinking like the only way you guys are getting together like that is somebody forced you. But that's
Well,
cool.
but here's the thing, like and this is why I think it didn't work, is because we would rather have the players be able to have that without a token.
Right.
And
Which is
just
cool.
have their influence naturally happen narratively, and not so much because I have the special thing.
Sure. Well, then it gives everybody a choice, and it gives you guys as directors or game masters to guide the game a little bit of a chance to wiggle it out, as opposed to be like, okay, I have to jump off the out of the window or something. I mean, I'm using that as an extreme, so that's cool. That's good though.
But absolutely, where we do get more specific is like kind of more in the battle mechanics, I guess, for different houses, and also like really how we get the differentiations of like which house you choose making a difference is how you roleplay,
Right.
because a ranger and how they roleplay is way different than how a Corson will roleplay
Yes.
or handle a situation. So instead of it being like, a Corson in Liz's house has a special token where she can sneak around. Her players are already going to sneak around.
Right.
Like, we don't need a token. They
Yeah.
were already sneaking around and
Sure.
stealing money from other players.
They
We didn't
were.
even have that mechanic, but they were doing it.
That mechanic might be in like in a game situation, like I know Rob did a thing in the library or something, like where like they could use it for like that. I know it's hard in the interaction because like I saw you walking, I'm never gonna not forget that or not remember that
Right,
you're there.
and
So
that's why we try to make it as live as possible and something that like tangible as possible. But like
That's awesome.
but like a ranger is going to be really upfront and like talk to you and be like hello, like
Yeah.
and use their charisma to get
Sure.
what they want. So like. We didn't need tokens. They were already
Right.
playing
They were
doing
those aspects of their characters, so it was like a burden more than helpful.
So in the character creation part, sorry not to cut you off, but who came up with the ideas for the way their characters looked? Was that individual? Each of your NPCs said, "This is the way I want to
Are
look."
you talking about costuming?
I want a costume. So
Yeah, I was
mean,
gonna
obviously, you
ask
guys
about
worked with some people, but did Liz? Was it conscious the way you looked? Because everybody was fabulous, but you were great, and the way you played it was like I thought it was like a perfect match. I remember. You had a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of stuff that we saw in the practice was a lot of you, and I thought it was like a perfect thing. So was that you, somebody else, everybody?
There were the seeds of ideas of each of the houses being, I don't want to say color coded, but because that's
Yes,
the wrong.
they were.
But
They were color-coded.
I prefer themed. The houses
Yes.
were themed. Let's put it that way. And that kind of came organically. And actually, I'm gonna give a serious shout out to one of our players, to one of the Corson players. But it did develop. The Arcanists somehow all ended up in the purples, and of course
Yeah.
the Rangers ended up in the greens and
Right.
browns because they're Rangers. The Aldens.
The Rangers.
Rangers.
I don't even know how the Aldens ended up in the blues, but they did, and then of course the Royals ended
Oh, the
up
Aldens
Right.
weren't supposed to be in blue?
Well,
every
I
every
don't-
single Alden wore blue.
They did, and I think a lot of that was because the characters were starting to show up when we did the initial portraits for each of the characters. They were in their distinctive colors, and so you had the Royals in the golds and the silvers, and you had the Rangers in the greens, and that did leave the Corson household with the reds, and so you ended up with the characters in there. appropriate colors. And what ended up happening was in a piece of fiction that one of the characters wrote, Rosalind, who plays Jordan Fenn, one of the Corsons, she actually came up with this thing where in the story she said, "It is whispered amongst those who wear the red." And I've latched onto that as a thing, and it's
Is that your new catchphrase? I'm sorry.
It's not necessarily the catchphrase, but it's one of those kind of subtle things that is now spoken of about the Corson household.
Awesome.
It is those who wear the red, and I loved that, but it helps. It gives people it gave people something to identify with.
Sure.
But everybody kind of showed up in their own costumes. Everybody designed their own characters and what their characters looked like with this guideline of this is kind of what your house looks like, which for me was hard because I'm a redhead and I didn't own a lot of red. I owned a lot of green. But that's fortunately there are lovely cheap websites out there which will very quickly get you a red shirt.
Yes.
So.
I also love that the assassins wear red because that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't want to show the blood on your clothes.
And then the black market, they wear black.
Yes.
Well, and also, red helps hide the blood. Black helps hide
But it also helps like us as NPCs of being like, oh, that's a Corson, they're wearing red. Or they must be related to me somehow because they're wearing a certain color. Especially the first game when we didn't know anyone.
Sure.
All the players were new players to us.
Absolutely.
And new to each other, so it was nice for them to be like, okay, they look like they are wearing this color, so there might be affiliated. It's not something that we make mandatory. So, like, if a player is like, oh, I have only this purple dress, but I'm a golden blood, or can I come to the game? And we're like, yeah, wear what you want.
Yeah.
It is up to you.
You're going to spray paint them when they come in, but that's no, it's easy. So.
What we might end up doing, because this game is a little bit bigger, we are doing gifts for this time for all the players that come in, that special little token, and we might have something affiliated with their gift that helps it's mainly also for other players to be like, what house are you from?
Right.
And if they can see this thing like, oh, you have a shield, you're an Alden.
Right.
You're a paladin knight. So that's where it can get helpful, but it's more like a guideline, but it's not a code.
Sure.
It's something we are going to enforce on people.
Guidelines than actual rules.
Yes. There are hints of that. That's cool. Because I could see, obviously, like with 25 people, y'all are going to figure it out, hopefully relatively quickly. But in real life, like you watch Game of Thrones, guys are walking down the street. You have no idea who that person is. Why would you think, oh, this is a thief? But in the gameplay of what you need to do, like you say BioWare, fighters are these big hulking guys or dwarves that walk around, and thieves look the same way. And that makes sense. Well, because you need to interact with them, and you need to know what that is. So that's really, really cool. Yes,
okay, I have a question. So you started this. You have your own theater. Is it affiliated with this, or just sort of loosely?
Not technically.
Is it under the umbrella, or is it
not
just
really?
A
It's not
thing?
like in terms of legality, it is not affiliated. Otherworld Theater is a 501c3, so it's a nonprofit.
Okay.
But the joke is that there's Otherworld Theater. And then there's Moonrise Games. And it's a joke to myself that if Otherworld is the planet, then this is the moon that orbits the planet. Mainly for me, because the things that I can buy for Chronicles, I can use for Otherworld Theater.
Sure,
like, if we do a fantasy, I have so much fantasy now that...
Oh, yeah.
I have a whole basement full of LARP.
Right.
It's a mess. Not for much longer. I'm working on it, but and vice versa. Like things
Dylan
that I
will
buy.
talk in 5 years and see how
Things
that's
that
working,
like a lot of things are transferable between the two.
Sure.
And if Chronicles really excels and Moonrise Games really excels the way it can, and it gets to the point where it's going to be probably an LLC, it can give to the nonprofit for tax exempt.
Sure.
Yes.
So that would be like the dream where like everything is working with each other.
Simpatico.
So like Otherworld can't give to the LLC, but the LLC can write off for taxes to the nonprofit.
Okay, so my other question along those lines is so you started this, and as my husband and I know from starting many things, but Especially things like, along these lines where you have to actually have, capital, or you have to have buy-in from people who are joining you on this mission. But how did you fund the first chapter?
The first chapter was all ticket sales.
Okay.
It was all tickets. Honestly, for immersive LARPs like this, we are on the cheaper, less expensive option. Mainly because we're
More
starting
affordable.
out.
Quality
More
is
affordable.
high.
Quality is
Yeah.
high,
But cost is low.
But I mean, there are some LARPs out there that for only Friday and Saturday, it's like $600 is the cheapest option.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yes. This one is 2 nights and 3 days, and it's the most expensive option is $410, and that's for your own room.
You can't stay in a hotel for that and eat.
Right.
I'm saying that's very
Right,
reasonable.
right.
And have all your meals
That's- yeah,
included and have
exactly.
entertainment the entire time.
Right.
It is an experience, and it's
Yes.
yes.
Well, I am. I'm not sure about you.
But yeah, honestly, we're able to do it all with ticket sales. Obviously, as we grow and expand, we will start looking at investors. But for us, right now, Chronicles is slated for 3 chapters. It can extend beyond that, but we were really unsure of how this was going to work, or if it was going to work, or if it was going to play out. We didn't want to promise more than we were willing to do.
I hope it extends more than 3 chapters.
We have a lot of Raven to see.
Molly, they're
Yes.
telling you 3 chapters
She's
for
only
a reason.
10,
Maybe they're
so-
going to go to 4, but
What was I saying? Oh
I
yes.
don't know.
So we were like promising like 3 iterations of it, and we were going to see how well it did. I mean, it's really taking off, which is really exciting. We have a lot of people, not even just out of country. This one, we have some people from Canada flying in, Idaho. California, it's crazy. They're coming in for our game.
Yeah.
Cool.
No
That's
pressure.
awesome.
Well, as someone who had never done this before, I'm not an actor, clearly.
You're mute.
I
You're mute, Lady
she was the
Clock.
best mute
I'm so
ever.
I learned
Ever. She
that
probably
I can
talked the whole time.
actually
So
not speak.
I
which was a big deal.
loved your
But-
character.
But
did you stapler mouse?
I think the characters that don't speak are sometimes the most interesting because so many people were wondering why you weren't speaking, and they would ask me as the lady listener, and I
I
was
had
like,
a whole backstory.
Was-
I
Which
had
was
a whole
great.
thing
Oh
going
my
on.
gosh! And on the walls, there's this picture of like Rumpelstiltskin saying something from
Up in
this
the
young
turret.
woman,
Up in
and
the-
Mary Kate kept saying she was playing the queen. That she was saying, "Oh, this is a picture of very young Lady Clock."
Yes.
When her
Not
voice got
Rumpelstiltskin.
taken away.
No, I was Sleeping Beauty.
No.
I was at one
no,
time
not
a
Sleeping-
beauty. Yeah. now I'm a lady clock.
Well, now you were sleeping, then you weren't talking.
Yeah.
It was
Now I'm not
fantastic.
talking. But what I wanted to say to that was I came into the game like a week before, maybe, right? Before we actually did this thing. And I was like, okay, I think I can, because I had to monitor Molly. Somebody had to be watching. We
Yeah.
had total strangers. Like, it wasn't like when we do Otherworld stuff, she knows everybody and I know she's safe and protected. But here, it was going to be in a huge castle with total strangers. So we had to have her monitored. And so I had to play a character. So on the dress went and the hat, and there we
yeah.
went. But
and
the knitting, yeah.
But also,
With
sometimes,
my wood needles.
like you would just let me go around. You're like, oh, grab this. So you would let me go through the castle still, because
Yes.
a minute in, we knew that everyone was like everyone at
Well,
Otherworld.
once we were comfortable, yeah. But it was
and everyone was around there, so it's perfectly safe too.
Right.
Because
But for me, it was such a huge step out of the box, and I didn't know what to expect, and I had never done anything like that before, and I didn't want to leave. It was so much fun. It was exciting. It was just a blast, and it was over, and we were all going, no, we don't want it to end.
And that's actually a good point that you bring up, the how it ended, because we didn't know how it was going to end on our end, because the players, navigate the universe for us.
And you also have to check out, right?
And we have to check out.
I hate to say that in the real world, you have to be done.
There is like an emotional thing that I don't think any of us were expecting, and I guess it's very common in other LARPs where you're like, oh, it's over, and you're in this high aspect of living, like you're in this very concentrated high fantasy world, and then you like crash. Into another character. So and that's something that like we actually I reached out to the players and I was like, do you want us to make a little event where we just go to a restaurant after and just we're not in character, but we can talk about the game with each other and kind of it's called like a debrief. It's like you get to come down from the high around other players that experienced the thing that you experienced. And they were like, yes, please. We were so anxious afterward. We had like all of this energy. We didn't know what to do with it. So that was a learning experience for us.
One of the most beautiful memories I have is waking up Sunday morning. Yes.
Oh!
Wow. Mute. Where's the mute button?
It's fine, darling. Waking up Sunday morning.
That memory might not be beautiful, but it is steamy.
Okay. There are children in the room, darling. We stayed up late Saturday night, and then we all woke up Sunday morning, and it was one of those lovely Chicago fall thunderstorms. And it was rolling over the castle, pounding on the roof, thundering outside, a little blustery. And I woke up, and I talked to a bunch of other players and other NPCs, and they all kind of described a similar feeling where they all woke up to this thunderstorm outside of this medieval castle. And it all took them a split second to remember that they weren't actually... It's like, no, we were in a medieval castle with this thunderstorm pounding outside, and it was... it made the day cold and wet, but it was
bugs and water and all. It's a medieval castle.
The roof was leaking.
Yes. I bet.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that we talked a lot about. Especially on the ride home was, okay, well, the castle was cool and all, but how did
the dead ladybugs?
How did people feel about the bugs? And luckily, I wasn't in a part of the castle that was leaking, but apparently there were.
Bugs.
Yes.
Yeah, it was rain and bugs.
There was like one of the windows
and
was open, so there was
I can
rain
tell
all
you that
over.
in my bedroom, the ceiling was just ladybugs. I mean, there was no ceiling; it was made out of ladybugs.
Oh my gosh!
And idiots locking themselves out of their own rooms. What we were talking about was, do people want to have that be their accommodations, or do they want to go and stay in a hotel and come back to the castle during the day? So we sent out a survey. The survey was about all things about the game, which we got great feedback, we're happy to say, from everybody. Every single person who answered the survey said they wanted to stay in the castle, regardless of water, regardless of bugs, regardless of my personal feelings, which are very much on the side of hotel. The more stars, the better.
I could never guess that.
But the other thing I was going to say.
Listen to Burn Girl.
Yeah. The other thing that I was going to say though was that you were mentioning the high and then coming down from the high at the end. I'm an actor. Liz is an actor. Most of the people, Molly's an actor. Most of the people who were playing NPC characters are professional actors. A few of them weren't, but most of them are. And it is like nothing I've ever experienced as an actor to be in character for that long. And my character is intense, to say the least. Loud.
Very loud.
I needed to give my voice a rest after that. After that weekend. Yes, that's why my brother carries a drink wherever he goes. But it was, and it was exhausting, but in a good way. You felt totally, but I was spent, by the end of it.
Sure.
So I'm going to have to do like warm-ups to make, because this one's twice as long. The one that we're doing coming up in March is 2 nights instead of just the one.
And he's getting married, so we'll be.
And I'm getting
extra
married. I have to
excited.
be Groomzilla, which is very much in keeping with my character. Lots of fun, but just
Sure.
by the end of it, it's the only thing in your head, and that's all we talked about. For 2 weeks, that's all that we talked about. So it's a really cool thing, and I've never done a LARP before. I'm involved in this because Tiffany's my wife, and I do what she says. So I'm always doing these things, and I went into it like, okay, well, I don't know how this is gonna be. And then, afterwards, it was just nonstop. Mary Kate, who's one of the people who created it, started a Tumblr blog, and like the first thing I was doing was on my way home from work, I was writing a letter for her to post on the blog in character.
Nice.
And it's just like you just can't stop. You're like
Sure.
you're in the world, and you just want to keep playing.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you had mentioned about having like a debriefing thing. Would you ever consider having an actual like meetup of people in character outside of the chapters? Like maybe I hate to say meet at a bar, but hey, let's meet at a
We
club.
definitely want to. It is something that, like, for me at least, it's something that like it's hard to plan because
Yeah.
if I'm not doing Chronicles, I am doing something for Otherworld.
Sure.
So like I'm yin and yanging back and forth a lot, swinging back and forth. But it's something that we're definitely probably going to do. Another thing though is that like there's not actually a lot of time between this chapter and the next chapter.
Right.
It was pretty quick because the players were like, "When is the next one? When is?"
We thought they were going to beat down our door. I mean, it was like people were like, "I need the next chapter immediately."
Tiffany, you had mentioned like doing it quarterly. I'm like, 3 months is not enough time for you to do that. I mean, and this is what, about 5? Is this one? Is it 5 months? 4? I mean,
Yeah, 5.
which is 4,
a little bit less than 5 months.
4 months. That's a lot. That's a lot to plan. I mean,
And it wasn't planned before the first one. I mean,
Right.
there was nothing planned. It was let's do this and
like
see
I
what
was saying,
happens.
I was hoping really for the beginning of May. I'm like, or April. I'm like, please, but no. And I understand. I mean, you guys are busy. You've got, you're doing all these plays. You guys are all acting. I mean, I like I said, I'm on Facebook. I see you guys are in something almost every weekend. So how do you plan to get together when you guys are acting or working or living your lives? And
It'll be a lot easier in the summer, to be quite honest. Like it was like honestly, Chronicles ended, and then it was like November, which was like Thanksgiving.
Right.
December, that's Christmas.
Right.
January, everyone's recovering. Then
Sure.
it'll be February, which is Valentine's Day,
Right.
and then it'll be March.
Right. Well, then you get into St. Patrick's Day, and it's like, oh my gosh, now it's Chicago, and we have to enjoy it. And all
Well,
that stuff.
something else that's cool though is that a lot of the players and the NPCs are. What are you pointing at?
Celebrating their birthdays in March.
Oh, right.
Yes.
I wasn't going to say that.
Are we gonna celebrate Princess Raven's
What I was going to
birthday?
say was that a lot of the players and NPCs are in online Facebook groups and stuff now and are communicating in character. Like on our way here, Tiffany and Liz were talking about all this something that was decided about this character and plot. And I was like, when did this get decided? Like, didn't you read our 9 million post long thread about this?
On the
I was like,
triple
no,
se-
I did not.
on the triple secret Facebook that you're not part of. Didn't you see that?
I go like this to Rob. Oh my God. Okay, I don't know what this means. Do you have to do something? Does Molly need to be doing something? And I just hand him the phone.
And I'm
'cause
like,
I don't know what's going on
I
on
want
that
to
thread.
be doing something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all just so much, and it doesn't. It's like a foreign language.
But it's so fun. It's like you can't stop. So sorry for overwhelming everyone's Facebook.
No, because we want you to do it so that we can come and enjoy it.
Yeah.
We just don't want to do that part.
Well,
I just want to do.
We just don't wanna do the work, right, Dylan?
Come on, we've all done this. I mean, I can tell you that every time I watch Star Wars, even if I watch regular Star Wars, I'm like, I don't want to stop watching. I want to be and that's just the way I feel. That's the geek or the nerd in me that's like that. And I do that on a lot of things. Game of Thrones, when it's off the air, I'm like so depressed. I'm like, the season finale, I'm like, I can't watch any more new stuff. I mean, and that happens, and you get involved in that stuff, and especially if you are a part of it, it has to be great, and it's a great outlet for, you know, people that want to do it. It's a great outlet for you guys. And Dylan, you were talking about how it's different as an actor and doing it. You're part of it. You still get to be that geeky kind of player, and then be the, you know, but I'm saying, but you get to be that player, and then you're also an actor and doing it, and that's a cool thing to be, because it's not just your job. It's, hey, I'm doing this as a thing, and I think that's kind of neat.
And it's not like you're just watching something. It's like you
Right.
are in it.
And it's
You're
not like
doing that character. You're doing it for so long.
Well, you have a mark, but you also could be running around, and people are going to be talking to you, and it's not just like I'm going to be in the next scene. While I'm waiting, I have to do something.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting too. I actually had trouble. There were a couple times that, you know, like I said, I've never LARPed before, so I'm not really accustomed to the normal way things work.
Right.
But I had a couple of times that characters would want to talk to me out of character, and I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't drop it because it just is hard to do. Like for me, you know, I'm used to being in character and then going out of it at my own pace.
Right.
And,
The curtain comes
so
down.
when you're playing a character, especially a character as ridiculous as my character was, he was basically a mixture of Fraser Crane and President John Adams. That's
Is that your inspiration?
That's
Is that where you drew
basically
from?
my inspiration, which I give credit to my friend Cody Melcher, who wrote a play that was that. And it just inspired this character. I mean, that's basically who he is.
So Kelsey Grammer and Paul Giamatti is a kind of character.
Yeah, it's
That's awesome. That is fantastic.
but you can imagine he's very high strung and high energy the entire time and never stops talking.
And it's so loud.
So it would get to a point where somebody would say like, hey, OOC, which is out of character, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
What is this OOC you speak of?
I'm Ben Croft. And you know, it was just hard to just come out of that.
It was because there was one thing that I went up to Dylan, who is my husband, and I was like, Dylan, there are other events happening in the castle. You're so loud that everyone can hear you. Can you put it down a few notches? And he was like, who do you think I am? And I was like, but
do you know who you're talking to?
And I was like, but no, seriously, you need to not.
Hey, the mute's trying to speak. Could you pipe down a minute here?
So I actually just came to a realization. If you're John, does that make me Abigail and thus the smarter of the two?
Oh, well, I don't. Yeah, I think Burncroft would willingly admit that Illyria is better than him in every way. And Abigail was John's closest advisor, which Illyria, I'm sure, is. Well, Illyria in the game was the only person who could stop Burncroft from talking.
That's true.
I mean, that was.
Yes.
She was the only person you would stop talking to, you know. But I was also, you know, because of that, we were going at 100 miles an hour the entire time.
Yeah.
My character. I mean, he's likable in a way that you like him as a character, but he's annoying if you're trying to deal with him.
Oh yeah.
So
there's a lot to like and a lot to dislike.
Yes.
It's like which hat you taking on him, which is good.
Right. So I wasn't sure. I mean, I thought I was, honestly, because a lot of the players were exasperated when dealing with me because I was such an asshole.
Language.
Sorry.
God, you can bleep this, right?
Oh no.
Since
Oh,
anyway, since they were having to deal with this ridiculous character, I thought a lot of people just didn't like Burncroft and that they were annoyed by him. And as soon as the game ended, all of these players were coming up to me and they're like, "Oh my God, man, your character was so great. I loved what you did with that character." He's, and people were saying in the surveys or other things, who was your favorite, and people were saying Burncroft was our favorite, and that's total surprise to me because I was definitely not playing it to be likable. I was
everyone hates and loves Burncroft.
Yeah, it's a love-hate thing for especially Illyria.
That's funny.
He makes her smile. He makes her
And
smile.
it's funny because the relationships.
Because she's laughing at him.
Is it out of disgust?
The relationships that we built with the NPCs spilled over into how the players, felt about things too. Where I have a relationship, Burncroft has a relationship with a lot of the Corson house that's very similar to how his relationship is with Anders, the character who's Liz's brother,
my older
Illyria's brother,
yes.
which is that Burncroft, Anders is Burncroft's best and only friend. They grew up together, and Anders is very Burncroft, about everything.
You have one friend and he has none. Is that the way it works?
Well, it's from Anders has plenty of friends. Burncroft
has the one.
Has Anders as a friend.
A lot of people
need to do what Burncroft says because he's a lord and a royal. But Anders, it's sort of like that relationship where they do sort of love each other as brothers, but Anders is constantly exasperated by him. But that relationship sort of spilled out into the whole Corson house where they all sort of treated Burncroft as that, crazy uncle that they loved, but was oh my God, Burncroft.
And you know what? I will tell you that it explains a lot of the interaction. I had no idea about that from the beginning. And the way, I don't know if you remember, we talked about that one scene where he's being a little snotty in the back, I need to talk to you.
Right.
I thought that was completely out of character, and then now you explain it, it totally fits with what he should be.
I mean, we would have these scenes where we'd be screaming at each other, and then 2 seconds later we'd be chatting about,
it's those brotherly love kind of things where you hate each other, but then you're like, hey, let's go have a drink or do whatever. Blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
exactly. Yeah.
One of the interesting things, and I have to give such props to Tiffany because as the NPCs developed and as their backstories developed and as their families developed and as we started getting players in and their backstories and their families, Tiffany put together this family, God, I could call it a tree, but you look at this family tree and you suddenly realize that everyone on Amalur is pretty much related through blood or marriage to everyone else. And it's insane and crazy, and it's this huge, beautiful, wonderful family.
That's very Game of Thrones-esque.
I was going to say that's very Lannister-like.
Well, and there are a lot of characters who don't know that they have the blood of a royal or an important house, or they go into it not realizing it, or there are people who are secretly parts of
of other houses.
So that all exists too. Both for the NPCs and for the players.
How hard is it for you guys as NPCs? Obviously, you guys have to deal with a lot of the backstory and all that stuff, and you guys know each other pretty well. Yeah. How hard is it to separate that when you're out on the floor? I mean, I hate to be like Disney-esque, but there's that time when you need to be the NPC. Is that hard, or has that been pretty easy because you guys are in that, or?
Well, that's one of the things that's great for my character, because when I don't know something or when I can't remember what I have to say, I just tell people to sod off. I can just be whatever and walk away.
And say, don't you mean, Burncroft, that you should be doing this? Yes, that's what I meant.
Well, yeah, no, it's very, yeah. I mean, there was one, I remember I was with a group of the Arcanists and I said something that was wrong. I said the wrong word, and they all corrected me, and I just glared at them and stormed off, and that I can get away with that. Liz isn't so lucky, I don't think.
I am not that lucky at all, because as the sister of the person who is heading the black market and as the head of the guild,
Assassin's Guild.
Shush, darling. It is our job to know as much as possible about everything and everyone that is in the kingdom. That's not to say that we don't have secrets. Everyone has secrets. Certain secrets are more valuable than others. But once again, I have to give props to Tiffany, because the handbook that she created and the family tree that she created, and the fact that I have an entire notebook dedicated to, okay, this is about this, and this is about this, and this is about this, and this person is connected this way, and there's this secret that I should know, and this secret that I don't know. And so I think a lot of it does come back to the NPCs, who were so dedicated to their character and to knowing their histories that they could they had the information at their fingertips,
Cool.
or they knew it enough that they could pull something out. So if something happened and they needed to go with it, they're like, okay, I can go with it. I can do this.
Well,
Cool.
something else that was really
Very
cool
cool.
along those lines are that, us being different types of actors, like I said earlier, we have different strengths in different areas. I mean, I do a lot of scripted work, but I've done a lot of improvisation
Right.
and sketch comedy, and like kind of going on the fly is something I'm good at. It's something that Nathan Miller, who plays Anders, is very good at.
Yes.
And it's something that Bennett Botero, who plays the leader of the Aldens, the night commander, is really good at. And Bennett and I actually have
Do you have the darker hair and the beard?
yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Bennett and I actually have a history of improvising together and
Sure.
doing a lot of
Which
projects
helps a lot.
together.
Which helps
so,
tremendously, I'm sure.
it's very interesting that different people have different ways of working. Liz had these binders of scripts
Right.
with all of these scenes and all of these notes. And Nathan and I would get together and be like, okay, we need a scene to happen, and here's the things that we need to happen in the scene.
Right.
And then we would just boom, 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 boom. We're like, okay, we got it.
It needs the last 10 minutes.
And-
Let's go.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And the same thing with, we were in the castle, the game was about to start, and I was like, hey, Bennett, I feel like we could do a scene here. And he was like, okay. And
Right.
we did a whole scene that like ended up being a scene people loved because
Right.
it turned out to be an important scene that established our two characters' relationships with each other, but it was not, decided on. So it's very cool. But then, that's not necessarily the only way to do it. You have Liz and a lot of the other characters who had everything written out, everything
Sure.
that could possibly happen, every possible branch.
Keep also in mind, I'm the fighter in the group. You don't improvise fights.
Yes, she
Right.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Those
No.
are all choreographed.
Absolutely, that stuff. Yes. No, it's
Safety
yes.
first, kids.
Yes.
Ooh.
You don't want to get anybody to get stabbed or anything.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing.
And-
Well, no, it's difficult.
Molly-
There's a lot of
Yeah.
multiple.
You had to improvise a scene, didn't you, or something? You had to do
Well, I had-
something with Michael.
Well, actually, I had two scenes in it that were set, and actually both of the scenes we had scripted, but we didn't really do it. do what the script said. So with me, I had a scene with Mary Kate, the queen, and Michael, the corrupted spirit, and that scene, most of the time, we pretty much improvised. And I had a scene with the person that played Veros, who's one of the direct descendants, right, of the uncorrupted spirit. Yes. And so I had a scene with him, and he came up to me, and I was like, "Oh, we didn't plan for me to have a bunch of bodyguards around me when a stranger comes up to me. Okay, how are we gonna do this now?" And it was just, we're like, okay, we've got to change it. Yeah, she would be freaked out if some strange man came up to her in the woods, and which we had not planned on.
right.
And
you
like,
had
I had a bunch of people that were like, "No, you can't come near her," and he's like, "But
But we have to,
no."
it's scripted.
And I'm like,
But it says on page 3, I have to talk to her.
and I was like, who are you?
It's like, oh no, we
And I
set
was
up
like-
too good an army around
Yes.
her. Yeah.
And then I was like, no, okay, we have to talk to each other. No,
Yeah.
it's fine. And they're like, okay, and they like stood there.
That was great though.
Yeah.
She had some pretty awesome bodyguards. I have to give
Yes.
some serious
I did,
shout out
yeah.
to the Aldens.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Aldens did it, so nice.
Yeah.
Well,
I had
and
a few
there was
Corsons,
there was
too.
also
yeah.
opportunities that we discovered that are helping with the next chapter of the game, which is certain things happen. Some players injected themselves into action that they should not have been doing. Not their fault. I mean, they were playing the game,
Right.
But it made us realize that there were certain mechanics that we had to establish, especially for the next chapter where there's going to be actual combat.
Sure.
So we were able to develop game mechanics to make the combat safe as a result of the things that happened in the first game. So, everything that happened, served a purpose and helped us just make a stronger and better game.
Sure. Did you have to ever interject and be like, we can't do this at all as the game master? Or was everything pretty much online?
No, I was prepared to do something like that, but I didn't.
Which I think you have to be because
Yeah, always. It's all about safety and stuff.
Sure.
But we were able to solve all of those problems narratively.
good.
like I would just go up to Michael, who played the corrupted spirit, who is essentially like a spirit god.
Yes.
Just for like,
Yeah.
to simplify it for people who don't know the world, spirit god.
An evil spirit.
An evil spirit god. And I was like, Michael, can you just like tell these other players that they're going to get cursed if they keep doing it? You know?
Yeah.
So like you make it narrative and the people get it in game and respect it in game. But you don't have to like break game and be like out of character.
There was one thing though, right? That didn't that have to? There was one thing I thought that had to be out of character.
That actually didn't have to be out of character. There was one player who got a little too drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
but
I remember
yeah.
I was in a room with a lot of the NPCs, and we were staying there.
Yeah, but really, I just went in there and I was like, as the lady listener, I say that you should really try to sleep. And he was like, okay. So then he went to sleep.
Well, and then that's also, there is an element of being an NPC that you have to be watching and making sure that things are okay. That you can't, as much as and it's hard because you're in character, but, we're watching for any inappropriate behavior or, whether it's just someone who just feels uncomfortable, for a completely innocent reason, or if someone is touching someone inappropriately. I mean, those are things that we are looking for and will stop. And those things will stop the game because and that's something we talk about and we say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to so in that way there's it's not just the game master's job to do that. All of the actors are on the lookout to make sure that everyone is safe and having a good time.
So as a lady listener, and this is kind of like what I do during the game, even though I'm the game designer and founder and game master, is I'm essentially the go-between between NPCs and players. Mm-hmm. So if there's something that somebody feels uncomfortable telling an NPC or don't want to break the game, they can come to me and I deal with it.
Right.
One of the things that I will say and applaud is that we have really great house leaders, and one of the first things you do as a player in the game, you go through kind of like a intro,
right?
And like Lady Illyria, your intro had some about being the assassin, and if you became inappropriate with any one of the other houses, that you would.
What was it? You would find yourself out your money, out on the road, and out of my good graces, which is not some place where you want to be.
So the more you.
Hold on. And you're wondering why I didn't like you before? No, I'm teasing, so that's good.
Yeah.
You do not. No. You do not, in the space of Lady Illyria, mess with anybody in her family, because it will not be good.
I mean, they all had different ways of doing it. Mine was, if you do any of these things, you're out. You don't get a refund.
Right.
Don't
F up and not.
But but I was able to do it sort of in my Burncrofty, way. But it was, these are the things we take very seriously. So you need to keep that in mind. And there are certain things that there is zero tolerance for when you're, a lot of it is a lot of improvisation and yes-anding and. In that way, it can sometimes, you can sometimes accidentally go somewhere where you're not intending to, just because you're taking what someone else did and you're expanding upon it, and you're, opening the gift that they give you, and there are mistakes and there are things that aren't mistakes, and we clarify right at the beginning that if there's something that makes someone feel weird, we will talk to you about it, but there are certain things. Sexual harassment and those types of things that are just there's zero tolerance for. So if it happens, you're gone.
Right. And unfortunately, in this day and age, it's in that genre. It's a huge issue everywhere. But it's been an issue for the last few years. You go to any convention, and it's like the first thing that you see, and that's and it's absolutely right. There can't be any tolerance for that, and it's got to be. That the penalty for that is. See you later.
But I also think it sets the tone for the game that people are like, oh, they've thought about this.
Right.
They are taking the steps, and there are places that I can go if I'm feeling this way. It actually makes them more relaxed that we've thought about it, and that everyone is briefed even before they start the game, so everyone gets that little pep talk in the beginning.
Yeah.
It makes them feel more comfortable to actually game.
Sure.
And we say right at the beginning too that we just put it out there that we don't role play around the issues of sexual assault or harassment. And well, that's an important thing to say because you watch something like Game of Thrones and there's sexual assault everywhere in that. So you need to make sure that people understand that even if you're playing a character and you're not intending to really do something, that's not an area where we're going to play.
And it's not a joke, and it's not something that you can just do. Because I thought you guys did a great job. I think we talked about that. Those beginning, your orientation and introduction speeches by everybody were great, and it was very obvious. It's like, no means no. You're not going to do this. Listen to me. This is what it is. And you guys, and then we can all have fun. Play within the lanes that we give you, and everybody will have a great time. And unfortunately, luckily it never got out of hand. But unfortunately, you need to be prepared for it because you never know. Somebody has too much to drink, something happens. It just it's stupid, but it's the unfortunate part. I mean, I know as a business owner, I'm always on the watch. Always. Always. That's what I do. That's my job, is to watch for stuff that could go wrong. It's not to make stuff go right. It's mostly to do stuff that goes wrong. And as a game master, I'm sure that's the way you feel. It's like, what can happen bad here? And then we go from there. So that's cool. I noticed we have a couple of players. Guys, what do you have to say about things that are going on? Or things that happen? I mean, obviously you're not in Doctor Who dress, so you're here for something else, right?
Yeah.
According to plan. So it's your fault. No, I'm teasing. So 99% of your fault. So no, it's good. Did you guys have a good time? I played with my girlfriend. She had not played yet, or not played? Not yet.
I like the not yet part.
That's right.
Yeah.
We gotta get people. I mean, again, it's like Dylan's saying, there's a lot of misconception about what this is. Before it was pretty much what you would think, but that's as a nerd or a geek or whatever, you did it and it was cool. It's whatever you're into is acceptable and it's cool and it's good. And now it's a lot more, I hate to say socially acceptable, but in this age of the nerd, it's a lot more prominent, and I think it's really cool. I mean, like I think I've made it myself pretty clear. I'm really mad I didn't get to go. I'm really upset. I hope to make it to chapter 3, but that's just the way it works. So.
But wait, you said that you're on vacation the first week of March?
Yours is the 8th, right? I'm through the 6th. I'm that weekend too, so I leave like the 1st and get back the 10th.
Oh, I see.
I know. I'm missing it. I'm like. I'll be on a cruise.
Yeah.
I'll be in Mexico. Unfortunately, it'll be nice weather, but yes, Rob's like, oh, it's going to be here. I'm like, but I hate to say it, with the con schedule and with things here, that's like the only weekend with everything that's going on. So makes it rough.
To build off something you said,
Sure.
One of the things that I love about this is we give people a chance with a LARP. It's not just running around a field and whacking on fellow players with foam swords. It is a chance to go and be someone else for a weekend and to escape for a couple of days. And the real world is going to be there when you get back. But maybe you have these memories that you can hold on to. And so, when a day is dark, you pull up the Facebook group and you flip through the pictures of the dance that we had one night. Not long after we got back, I had a very dear friend who passed very suddenly. And it was a bad day at work, and this friend had died the previous night, and that's not an email you want to wake up to. And I minimized the window on my computer, and my background is the picture that I have that was taken on the final day of myself, my brother, my sister, and my 7 Corsons. And I'm like, okay. And I went to the Facebook page, and I scrolled through, and I looked at these pictures, and I'm like, I have these memories. And that I think is what makes it almost even a little more special than doing theater. I still love doing theater. I love getting and performing in front of an audience. But what is so special about a LARP is, even as an NPC and then as a player, you are fully interactive and immersed, and you are going to walk away with these amazing memories, and you are going to walk away with these special memories, and you are going to walk away knowing that you helped create those memories for other people.
Sure.
And actually,
yeah.
I was saying it's also about building relationships too.
Yes.
Because you see someone in the LARP, and you can't. It's not like with in a normal show where you can just be a completely different person. and that's only for like a couple hours. This, you have to be a completely different you have to do that for so long. You can't help but having yourself in there too. So like, if your character's friends with someone else, like I know I got out of the LARP and I was like, oh my gosh, you're my favorite person ever. I've never actually talked to you outside, but I love you. You're like my best friend now.
Well, something also that we, from a theatrical standpoint, I don't know that it's the idea of it is that different from theater. Something that we've talked a lot about in the theater company, Otherworld, that we run. We do science fiction and fantasy theater, and we do stuff that you really can't find a lot of places. Science fiction, particularly, has not been something that's been staged a whole lot because, for various reasons, people think that it's not really feasible to do on a stage. But we really believe that that people want something more from theater these days, and certainly traditional theater is great. I love going to some of the traditional theaters. Steppenwolf is one of my favorite theaters, and seeing a great classic American, play, something by David Mamet or something. But a lot of young people, that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in something that's more interactive, something that can be that's world building and immersive.
Sure.
And we try and do that a lot as a theater. Is give people something more, something that feels like a fuller experience. But this is sort of taking that to the next level. And it's still very much, there's narratives, there's stories, there's characters. The characters have their objectives, and we've done the work that you would do as an actor for any production, but it's giving people who really want something more out of the experience to really create an entire world that they can live in. It's like our version of a holodeck, here in the 21st century.
Well, and this is it. I always look at LARPing, or my idea of it would be acting on crack, where you're like this whole thing is doing it. But think about this. I think for Lady the Garbage Lady has been there the entire time, and she does that every weekend, 10 weekends a year, and it's amazing that people do that stuff. I have friends. We have people who own businesses down the street that have shops up there, and the amount of effort and the amount of escape that people get for that weekend. I'm like, that isn't my thing per se, but I can see how people do it, because if there was a Star Wars world or a Lord of the Rings world or a Doctor Who world, which I tried to recreate a little bit here, I'd be there in 2 seconds because that would be great. And that escape you talked about is huge, because I think we as life gets harder, and I don't think it's getting any easier for all of us with all of the stuff that's happening, that if you can have a weekend that you can get away, or 3 a week, a year, that's awesome. And that's awesome that you guys can provide that for people.
Well, what they were speaking to, as far as coming home and having your reality, hit back in, but to know that you have, they have created those characters, and they have, like Molly will go be in a play, and she's given a character. And it's like, okay, now do something with this character, but she only has this much leeway, because the director has their opinion, and there's a script, and the writer's going to be sitting there crabby, and
that's not what I intended.
What did she just do to that part? That wasn't what was supposed to happen to that character. So you don't have very much, but in a situation like this, there was, even for someone like me who's never played a character or had to do, and to be able to just say, here's my backstory, this is what I've thought, this is why I'm mute, this is what's going on, and this is it, and it is completely a different experience, and you're so much more invested in what's going on and in the people around you, and it just sucks you in a whole different way than traditional theater. But I have a question for Tiffany. So you're a director.
I am.
Most of the time. That's your hat, right?
Yes.
What did it feel like having to give up that control for this? Because you couldn't direct this.
Well,
necessarily.
It's not about I don't really like to consider myself a director, even when I am actually directing. I like to think of myself more as a facilitator. I'm helping make the magic happen, but I also don't want to
you can't close it with a fist. Really, the hardest part of being the director or game master is taking what the NPCs, their wants and desires for their characters, and also making it work with the players, and then, killing the babies is really my job. Of being like, okay, NPC, I know that's what you really want to do, and this is what your character wants and everything, but the players want to do it, like, the players have a character arc this way, and, like, the player wants to do that. Your character can't do that, and the player wins. You know what I mean? And like facilitating, but like, and weaving. And really, I've surrounded myself with people, great artists who say yes and. It's not really. I haven't really. There's really no arguments about like no one really gets there.
Dylan didn't cry. He wanted to be king. I want to be king. No.
Yeah. He thinks he is. He thinks he is. He just tells everyone he is.
That makes sense.
That's very Gallivant.
Yes.
And boy, did he try.
I think he's still trying.
I'm not
by
sure
the way.
which one has the tummy flower situation.
So really, like, to answer your question, it's like facilitating the world and making sure that everybody wins. Is really my job. I have no time to worry about what I really want to happen in the world, because there's so many people who have their own agendas, and it's really just weaving all the agendas and saying yes and playing and sticking the gifts that people are giving me. Never look a gift
In red?
horse.
What? I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, that's awesome. That's cool, because I would think that this would be a.
Don't make me upset as lady listener.
There you go.
Because I am the game master, so
right.
I can.
I think that would be hard. Like, I hate to say with your ego, I think that would be a very humbling experience, because you're like, I'm in charge of this, but all I'm doing is scooping it with my arms and keeping it in this kind of area.
You would think it would be humbling, but it's really like you don't have any time to have. Like, for me, I don't have time to question anything.
Right.
Because I not only, like, okay, somebody wants to sell stuff on the black market. Okay, well, I guess I got to build a black market. Oh, my God, I have to build a black market.
Wait, what's a black market? Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so, like, you are always building the dreams of other people. You don't have time to really, like, oh, I wish this would happen. I mean, what everyone's giving me is great. Like, I don't really have like an ego stake in what's happening. I just want to be sure that everyone has a good time, and that if I can fulfill a desire like that I do it to the best of my ability.
Sure. That's cool. I mean, I think that kind of wraps up the service industry kind of as a total. I bet is, and it's very similar. It's compatible to being an actor and being an artist and being all that stuff. Is you give so much of yourself, and the real reward is helping other people get what they want or fulfill what they want. It doesn't matter if you're having a bad day. It doesn't matter if it went the way you wanted. But if somebody loves the sandwich, loves the performance, loves the chapter, then your job is done. And that's awesome. And to me that's a very humbling thing, because you go into these kind of things and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and this, and it completely gets blown out of the water, and then you're like, man, I made these people really, really happy. I made this kid's day, or I did whatever, and you're like, oh my God, it's completely worth it. So.
We had a good number of secrets that we didn't think people were going to find out about, at least so quickly. So we were, so there were a lot of things that we wanted to keep a secret just because we wanted people to be surprised by them.
Right.
And we had players coming up to us that were like, I found out this. And I'd be like, oh man, how did they find that out already?
Hour one.
And yeah, it was like 5 minutes in. Molly's not the real princess. It's like, what? And of course, but then it wasn't really 5. It wasn't really 5 minutes in.
If you get to a certain
4.
level, I had to leave the room, and she would be like, Molly isn't the real princess.
Or Raven isn't the real princess. Right. But
yeah,
so
she would be like, Raven isn't the... And everyone would be like, what?
Yeah, but what we had to do was, as NPCs, you couldn't try and lie to them or say, no, you can't know about that yet. It was like, okay, well, what am I going to say? Because what would my character think about this crazy thing that's happening? I remember that Bennett, who was playing the Knight Commander, so many of the things that were happening were like serious matters that he had to deal with as being the guy who was in charge of the armies.
Right.
That she's not really the princess and the queen's trying to take power and there's this evil man and we didn't realize that the players, or some people realized it didn't matter, but we were surprised at how quickly all of the players learned of all of these plots.
Sure.
And that they didn't keep them to themselves. They ran to us to tell us what was happening. So they were all telling Bennett all these things, and he didn't know what to do because he couldn't just stop the narrative. I mean, he couldn't just walk in and say, I'm the Knight Commander and you're going to prison or I'm going to behead you or whatever. So he just was like, I don't even know what to say anymore. I'm so depressed if this news is true. I need to think about this. Just get out of my office. And some of the players got so upset with him that he didn't do anything as the Knight Commander. Like, he didn't do enough, in their opinion, to stop whatever plots were happening, that there was almost like an insurrection. Like, some of the knights were like, we're going to take down the Knight Commander. Because he wasn't doing enough with the information they gave him. And he was just like, I'm so depressed. I just don't even know what to say.
Was he the sad robot?
Yes, he was.
Oh, woe is me.
There was a break in the action, and I went up to where the Corsons were staying, and all of the players were in one room, or were in one part of the dorm, and the NPCs were in another part of the dorm. And I'm walking down the short, tiny hallway, and I hear all 7 of the Corsons excitedly talking about all of these secrets that they've learned to each other. And I go, oh, okay, all right. So I need to not be a part of this conversation because they're talking about things that I should not know yet. So I'm going to go the other way and find another bathroom. But yeah, so.
Well, there were several things that people would tell me, and then I would be like, okay, well, cat's out of the bag. I knew it! Damn him anyway!
Well, the great thing is that, because we had this insurrection happen between the knights, after the game was over, we were like, okay, well, how do we incorporate that piece of narrative that people were so upset with the Knight Commander? Mm-hmm. So now we have this insurrection. It's like this other rogue faction called the White Shields, and the White Shields are like, if the Alden isn't going to do anything anymore, we're going to rise to power.
Oh, wow.
And but like that was a gift. Like sometimes you see things you don't anticipate the players finding out things early or whatever, and it has all these negative consequences towards an NPC, but you use it.
Right.
Still use that and make it into the world. Well, this is what would happen if that was,
And then you have the Aldens kill them all later. No, I'm sorry. Game of Thrones, but no, that's it's going to change because I think, like you said from the get-go, it changed right away. I mean, chapter 1, things that you thought might happen, all of a sudden that script is flipped and we're doing things that we thought might happen. Yes, exactly. Which is cool, and then that'll get somebody else thinking the crazy.
Yeah, that's the one sitting over there.
Are you just waiting for her to kill him? Is that what you're doing?
The one who brought us together.
Yes.
Thank you, Baldwin, so much.
Yes. Thank you.
It's all according to plan. That's good. Well, that's cool. Yeah, go ahead. Ask away.
So chapter 2. Yes. Are chapter 1, 2, and 3 all continuing? Is it going to be the continuation of one story?
Yes, we planned up to 3.
Okay.
And we were like, let's see where this goes. And if we really didn't feel like this was going anywhere, we were gonna be like, all right, well, we had an idea, we tried it out. It didn't work out or whatever, but it seems like it's having a lot of steam. So we definitely have 3. It's looking like we'll probably continue on the story because people are really excited about it. But it was just, we say 3 because that was the number that we told ourselves in the beginning that we were going to do 3 chapters.
Yeah, you can't make the decision after 1. 1's not going to be, unless it's a complete train wreck. 1's not enough. You need to you need to have a good one. You need to have an and one, and then you have to have one that brings it in the middle, and you'll be
just
like,
all trilogies.
Well, exactly. You can tell I'm a Star Trek boy, so that's.
I think just to give because we have all of this fantastic lore. There are prophecies, there are ideas, there is an idea of where we. I'm going to say where we want the story to go, like kind of what the end point is, but what the we'll call them pit stops. The pit stops along the way are still being worked out. So we know what the overarching story is. The stories around that story, the story around the points to get to that end point, are obviously going to be different. Chapter 2 is obviously going to involve at least one wedding. Who knows? There may be more.
Is the other wedding proceeding, or did that get pushed to the side?
Well, the other wedding happened.
Oh, it happened? Okay.
In chapter 1.
Did it? Okay, I did not know if it happened or not.
They finished. They fully got married.
We got to, yes.
They didn't consummate, but they got married. But it was very funny because after everyone was gone and it was just me and Tiffany and Liz and Steve, Liz's husband, who plays Galen the dog, and he's one of the guys who helped us develop the game. We were like, well, chapter 2 now has to happen in the Corson estate. I mean, we have to have the wedding there. That's
wait, we do?
well, because when we first started, Stronghold Castle, where we did this in Oregon, Illinois. I mean, I don't think anyone had anything for sure in mind, but I think a lot of people thought they were going to continue to be there, that was the location.
No.
And we, maybe they didn't think that. I think the three of us probably thought that, at least the first few. In fact, it ended with the Queen in her ending speech saying, "We will meet here again in however long." So the plan was to come back because we had found this castle that worked.
Right.
And then we were like, well, that's not going to work anymore. And then the next week was us trying to find another castle, which, as you can imagine, is not the easiest thing in the Midwest.
What? Illinois has like at least 2.
Yeah, there's a couple, but this one's in Wisconsin.
Yes.
And I remember
Racine?
It's in Racine, Wisconsin. It's called the DeKoven Center. It's a retreat center. And so we were, online looking at all these castles in Ohio and in, all over the place. And we found DeKoven, and as soon as we found it, I was like, Tiffany, this is it. This is the Corson.
It's closer than Oregon.
It is. It's closer.
Yes.
This is the Corson estate. This is what we have to do. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, call them. And she called them. She got in the car. She went there the next day. And that night she was like, okay, we got it. This is it. And we had a new castle, and then we have a new chapter, and that's how it started.
To assuage any fears, to the best of my knowledge, there are significantly fewer ladybugs in the rooms.
Yes.
There's still some?
No,
there's none.
No, there should be none. I've seen no. To the best of my knowledge, the roof does not leak.
Yes.
No.
And of course, I say to the best of my knowledge. This is my familial estate.
I have gone there.
Yes.
You know what? It's actually like the perfect go-between between going at a hotel and going to a retreat. It's been very well appointed. Everything's pretty new. There's like one little square of water damage in one of the kitchens, and she was like, "Yeah, we have that. We gotta fix it." And I was like, "That I can deal with.
It's like we can live with that."
there is no rainwater coming from the ceiling.
I don't look up and see the sky. We're in. I got that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
there's no, it's one of the oldest campuses in the Midwest. It was built in 1883. It used to be a seminary for. I believe it's Jesuit. No, don't Presbyterian. So if you want to be a pastor, you would go to this college, and it was all boys, and so it was built in that Gothic architecture all around, and it's it's an entire campus. So there's multiple buildings.
Isn't there a little church?
There is a church. There is a medieval church in the center of the estate.
That's so cool.
So
good for a wedding.
The royal wedding has a. They have 2 ballrooms there.
Oh wow!
Well, there are a lot of rooms, though. I mean, I haven't seen all of it, but
there is a church, a recreation of a church in England. In the center of it, there is Taylor's Hall, which is where you sleep, and it has a little chapel in there, which is a little meeting area. Illyria's office is in there. They have little lobbies and dining areas where we can play games, like escape room type games. Is usually what some of our missions are, and that's also where you eat. And there's 2 ballrooms.
Oh, neat.
At the estate, and we'll be utilizing both of them. There is also a gymnasium that we will be redoing for training because the floor is something that we can actually hit, and people can fall on
Right.
easily, and we have the mats there.
Good.
And also a place to have the black market where you can go and shop. It's going to be sprawling. I am hoping to achieve the feeling of an actual kind of village,
Right.
or a working estate where you would have all of these different sections
Sure. Cool.
that you would be able to travel to.
For the Aldens, you need to make sure there are churches like that too, because it doesn't fit as well for it, like all the churches for the course, and you need a lot for the Aldens.
Well, the church, it's not necessarily a church per se, because also churches were a big, especially in the medieval times, they were places of culture, and that's where I think the Corsons kind of lie.
yeah, and they're chapels. It was funny though because this was literally the first. There's a Monday, I think. We were done on Sunday, and then this was Monday, and I was at work, and I wasn't working at all that day. I was on Facebook the whole day, and
I'll delete that.
and we had found the DeKoven Center the night before. Literally, we got home, found it, and we're like, "Oh my God, we have to," So I sent a picture of it to Liz, and she was at work too, and I said, "I don't want to get your hopes up." But this could be the Corson estate. And I think the text message he sent me back was, the sound I just made was not human.
That's amazing.
But it all worked out.
No, it did. So what for chapter 3?
Are you ready?
Yes.
I have to go there.
Yep.
We don't. How do you know?
I
we
know,
didn't know
but-
what we had at chapter 1. How do you know what we're going to do for chapter?
Just curious, if any other homesteads, if you will,
locations,
any other
Yes,
locations where you
Arcanists.
might see where the Arcanists came from, or anybody
Make
else.
sure they have cool, creepy turrets.
There are 2 locations that I have in mind, depending on which way we go. I can't spoil anything.
No, we don't want that.
Please spoil for us. Because we're NPCs.
Molly, you can't keep a secret. You're worse than your mother, but I just want to let you know.
But
And
yeah,
she's
it
mute.
depends on what route we go.
Okay.
And how it's decided for chapter 2. Just like chapter 1, we had no idea.
Right.
We do really want the power of choice is so important to me as a game master, that not only that you get to choose what character you play, but also feeling like the choices that you make in chapter 1 affect the things that happen in chapter 2. That I really don't want to be like, it's gonna be here. Which is also kind of scary because you can lose out on location because you wait too long.
Right.
But it's just something that I just feel really passionately about. That I need the players to make that choice for us.
Cool. All right. Now, I have one last question. So what? So you have first chapter, second chapter, third chapter, right? And then maybe more. Mm-hmm. But have you ever considered spin-offs? Spin-off series.
We are looking into the possibility of
just the
expanding.
Burncroft. Just call it Burncroft, and it's just yes, Lady Cluck.
Burncroft Crest. That would be great, like Falcon Crest.
The Cluck.
Dun, dun.
The quest for Cluck.
We do want to make this a business.
Yeah.
So Moonrise Games is the name of the business that we are thinking of creating if we want to expand LARPs, and then the different types of LARPs there are. A lot of people have asked about inquired about vampire LARPs, so we are
I'm sorry, about what kind of LARPs?
Vampire.
Yes.
Vampire LARPs.
Fun.
So we're looking into that. Steampunk is another one that we've
Yes.
that we've been considering. And then a high sci-fi, like high sci-fi LARP.
I don't know what that means, but
Like it is. Yeah, well, we don't either. No.
like you're high
No, high.
or you're elevated. I don't
So like there's
either
different
one.
types
I know.
of there's different types of science fiction. So like when you say something like high science fiction, you're talking about like your Star Treks.
Okay.
Something that actually uses science to tell the story in hypothetical science fiction-y ways.
Okay.
So we were thinking of doing like a futuristic. Maybe that's a better word of saying futuristic LARP.
That would be cool.
Futurama, futuristic, no, dude.
A space opera. That's Star Wars. A space opera.
A space opera set on Tatooine. No, that's cool. So that's cool. I mean, I know that. I think in talking to Rob, it said you guys had thought, that's great that you're thinking about that if it can work. So because being in business, not as you know, not every idea works out exactly the way you want it, but the goal is to get to where you want to go. So that's really cool. Is there anything else that you want to cover? Why don't you give us the particulars about Chronicles of the Realm, where it's going to be, what it's going to cost, how people can sign up, get all that stuff together, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
And explain how they get to choose, because I think you touched on it earlier, but right now, like make sure they know they get to pick their house.
So if you are interested in anything that we just talked about, the first thing that you should probably do is follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. We have an Instagram. Follow us, like us, subscribe. We have a YouTube channel where we have character interviews, so you can get to know the characters a little bit better. Go to our website, which is www.chroniclesoftherealm.com. That's going to have all the information on there. And what you do is you choose which house that you want your player to be a part of, which is the Alden, Paladin Knights, Corson, Rogue Assassin, the Royals, Silverbloods, and Golden Bloods, Arcanist, which is like our mage house, and then the Rangers, which is like the Druids. Rangers. They're pretty self-explanatory. You choose your house, and depending on which house you choose is kind of where your character starts. Might not be where they end up. But it's definitely where they start.
Right? No.
Yeah, secrets, or you can tell me. So in terms of cost, it's $370 for the weekend, which includes your food, your lodging, and the game itself. And it's $410 if you want to be a royal with your own room. So yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell.
When is it? When is it and where?
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
It's March 9th through the 11th, so it's that weekend.
No, 6th through the...
No.
Are you sure?
I am positive.
I thought you just said it was 6.
No.
So then Chris.
You did, but I knew you were talking. I knew what she was talking about.
Oh, it's a day late.
The 6th is like a Tuesday.
It's March 9th through the 11th.
Right, 9th through the 11th, yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
She said it was the 6th. It's March 9th through the 11th.
Go back to not talking,
It starts
Lady
on
Clock.
Friday night, and it goes all the way to Sunday afternoon.
Cool. And it's going to be where?
And
We
it's
talked
at the
about it.
DeKoven Estate in Racine, Wisconsin.
And you know what? I know, just make sure if you guys are interested, reserve your spot, because didn't some of the houses fill up pretty quickly?
The Corson house is the one that fills up the fastest. Everyone wants to be a rogue assassin, although I think that actually...
I wanted to be a rogue until I told Dan, I was like, well,
Wait, but are you? No.
I also think the Royal House is filling up quite fast this time. We really can't tell. We have lots of groups that are trying to sign up right now. We probably have around 30 seats left, but we have groups of 10 that are interested. So it's really hard to, if you want to do it, reserve.
Yeah.
As fast as possible.
And there are payment plans too, so you can put down a deposit and pay the rest later. But just to give you an idea, it's still, it's in March. It's 2 months away. We have the number that have already paid and signed up is the number that we had total for the last game.
Nice, awesome.
And we know a lot of people who are planning to purchase. If everyone who's expressed interest buys a ticket right now, I think we are totally sold out, if not oversold. So
Nice. That's awesome. So, guys, just I want to thank you guys for coming out. I'm going to have everybody say their name again, give any social media if you want, and then we'll wrap it up. And thank you guys for coming out. So go ahead.
My name is Molly Southgate. I play Raven Lyrian. You can follow my food blog at What's Molly Makin' on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Excellent.
My name is Tiffany Keane Schaefer. I am one of the founders and game masters of Chronicles of the Realm. You can find me on Facebook as well and Twitter. And I also founded Otherworld Theater, and we do science fiction and fantasy. So if you're interested in that, find us on Twitter and Instagram and
I know
Facebook
this is
as
on
well.
radio. I gave a thumbs up. It's awesome. If you can see any of their shows, I would run. So thanks.
So sweet, so sweet.
Elizabeth MacDougalnd. I am play Lady Illyria Corson. I am an artistic associate with Otherworld Theater Company. I am also an artistic associate with Babes with Blades Theater Company, and I am an ensemble member with Idle Muse Theater Company. So if you want to see what I'm doing, check out the Facebook page of Otherworld or Babes or Idle Muse. Yeah.
And I'm Dylan Schaefer. I play Lord Burncroft Belzen. Otherworld is a big part of my life as well. I'm an ensemble member and do a lot for that company. Otherworld Theater with an RE.org is the website you can visit, and I do a lot of the work on that website, so you can enjoy my pretty online
pictures,
handiwork. Yes. I don't know how to tweeter, so I don't do that. But I am on Facebook, I guess, as like my personal page. But Otherworld's page and the Chronicles of the Realm stuff is where you can find most of my information.
All right, I'm Martha Southgate. I am co-owner of Southgate Media Group. You can find me there, I suppose, if you want to. Otherwise,
so you can hold your phone to your
I am
husband.
Lady Cluck.
and
Mute
and I am
extraordinaire.
Chris Mao. I'm co-owner of the Blue Box Cafe, where this edition of Live at the Blue Box was taped and seen and recorded. I'm also a co-host of a lot of shows on Southgate Media Group and your host for the evening. Thanks to everybody from Chronicles of the Realm for coming out. Molly, Tiffany, Liz, Dylan, Martha, and thanks for stopping by. And again, we'll have this on the web soon for you. Thank you very much, guys.